What COVID is doing in terms of increased hunger is it is affecting countries which were previously okay. Think of countries which rely on tourism. Think of countries which rely on remittances, meaning people sending money from overseas to them. Think of countries where informal sector, service sector, manufacturing sector are big parts of the population. So when you have like these severe job losses or you have big lockdowns, that means that those people become vulnerable. And we have assessed all of this, and we think that over the year 2020, we will have another 130 million people who would become food insecure. So 135 million from before COVID and another 130 million because of COVID, and you combine them and we are talking about more than 250 million people who will be food insecure, who would be hungry during this year. If you look at the food and fuel crisis of 2008, that was essentially a supply side crisis, meaning there wasn't enough food. If you look at the financial crisis of 2009-10, that was essentially a demand side crisis, meaning people lost their jobs, people lost their purchasing power. But this one, it is both. Because on one side, people have lost their jobs. That's the demand side part. But on the supply side, transport is not working as it was working before. It is very difficult to take things where they're produced to where they're needed. It is a supply side crisis and a demand side crisis at the same time and at the global level. That is what makes this really unprecedented, really truly uncharted as a crisis. Now, right now in the world, you have enough food. There's no shortage of food. Okay, whether you're looking at rice, whether you look at wheat, it's available. The problem is, how do you take it from where it is produced or where it is to where it is needed? That's logistics problem. But if going forward, farmers are not able to go to the field to either plant, to harvest, or if seeds don't come on time, or if fertilizer doesn't come on time, we are talking about a big production problem for the next marketing year. And that would be terrible because then our global stocks will not be enough. It is extremely important that countries set aside their differences right now and work together. Trade policy is one example of that. We need to make sure that countries don't use artificial barriers like export bans or import subsidies, because when they do that, particularly in this environment, when the purchasing power is so severely depressed, they create artificial hikes, price hikes. They create panic buying. And that is not good for anyone. That is not good for the countries which impose these bans. And obviously, it is not good for the countries which then suffer from these bans. Starving your neighbor is never a good policy because you may have to rely on them for something else. And this is the time when we need to have collective trade policy so we can keep prices under control, we can keep affordability for everybody intact. And we need to essentially do 5 things. We need to assist people directly who are in trouble because of wars or climate shocks and all of that. We need to make sure that we assist governments by creating fiscal space for them to implement these safety nets because they can reach a lot more people than we will. We need to make sure that the supply chains continue to work because that's the economic lifeline of the world. And if commercial supply chains don't work, humanitarian supply chains will not work either. We need to make sure that we stay away from trade barriers like export bans and import subsidies. And we need to make sure that we take care of the agricultural sector. If we do those things, we can come out of this crisis a little bit better